but I just want to give a quick shout out to Arvel because I was messaging him this morning, and so I posted um this like little quote thing about like how a life lived for art is can't remember. It's like something about it's like the best endeavor or something. I can't even remember what I write, but like it was
Okay.
something about like art, okay, and how like if you, it's like the only worthy endeavor. That's what it was, like
Mm-hmm,
pursuing
mm-hmm.
art, and then I think that, but it's like I'm never direct when I'm saying something. It mean like what does art mean,
Yeah,
right?
I
We
was
always
about to
like
say that.
thank
Yeah,
you, thank you, exactly. You get
because
it.
the work that you do could be art.
Thank you. Exactly. Because like when, Wob liked it right away, and I'm like, "I knew you'd like it because you get it, like, as an artist." But then people are probably like, "Well, I'm not an artist." It's like, "No, you are, but you just don't know
True.
you are." It's like the boxes we were saying, "Are you spiritual or religious?" Remember that
Yeah, yeah,
little,
yeah, 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 yeah.
excerpt? It's
Right.
like, "Well, what do you mean by that?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, when I say art, it's like the feeling. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like, "Oh, I painted a picture," because you can paint a picture and you're not an artist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, there are people who work like it's an maybe this is the better word. It's like intrinsic motivation. You know, you're not like guided by something that's like, "Oh, I really wanna get this person's approval," or "I really wanna get this money," or like whatever, right? And if you just intrinsically motivate yourself through every single action, it's like then you won't have wasted your life,
mm-hmm.
right? Because you're like, "Oh, I wanted to do that, so I did it," you know? And, it got me thinking because he just surprised me this morning. He's become a climber, and I was like, I had no idea because I messaged him something about like my tattoos that I got. I was like, "Yo, check this out," and he's like, "Yo, check this out," and I was like, "Oh, do you like PewDiePie?" Because you know PewDiePie is doing like the climbing.
Oh no, I don't. I haven't watched his
Oh, okay,
recent
okay. So
stuff.
he's a deep climber now. Like PewDiePie is jacked, and he's just doing like climbing, and I've just been like obsessed. But like the closest one to me is like 40 minutes away, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing so many other things that like I can't commit to that. But at Morningside, like near the Walmart,
Yeah.
they have a rock climbing gym, and it's just like 5 minutes for Arvel to drive there, and it's $85 per month. So it's like, dude, that's like nothing. I'm paying like 214 for jujitsu, bro, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one activity. I got all these other activities, you know what I mean? It's like, damn. But like that's a great price, and he's like, it's there's one that's open 24 hours. This one specifically like 10 AM to 11 PM,
Okay.
right? And, not to like give a plug to climbing, but it's more like that's the intrinsic motivation. When he sent me this, I was so hyped for him. I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna be so sick in a year," like, and I think that's what like the flame is when I'm like, "Oh, God, light my fire." It's like there's like this intrinsic motivation that we feel,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And then like you just go with it. And then you can transfer that feeling to so many other things,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? But I
yeah.
feel like a lot of people have lost that. Like what, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if you get bombarded by life or you're just too tired, but then you're kind of stuck, right? You gotta
Yeah,
find things
dude.
to motivate you in life, kind of thing.
Or like, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What's
that's
the
why I
point?
was so stoked about that because I was like, I hadn't heard from this guy in a while. So I was like, okay, like, are you doing anything? Because it would suck to just be like, oh, what are you up to? Like, oh, same old same,
Mm-hmm.
just we're gonna pay these bills. And I'm like, oh, I was talking to this like old lady who old ladies like love me for some reason. But like I was in the elevator with her. I'm like, oh, I just come from work. And she's like, yeah. And then I was like, yeah, I remember you said like you worked like at these places or whatever. And she works on the weekends. And she's like, yeah, yeah, totally. And then she's like, I just gotta pay these bills, that's life though. And I was like, yeah, that's life. And I was like, that's not the life I want though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was the ethos of the time, right? Like our parents were like, that's life. Gotta do it. Like, "Oh, you
Sure.
gotta pay for," like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right? Like, that was the prevailing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that's there too, but I guess within that you have to find things that you want to do, right? I guess. Like you wouldn't even know. Like for my dad, yeah, sure. Like that was the thinking, but it was also like Saturdays he was going skiing
Oh, damn, I didn't know that.
in the winter. Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like cross country skiing or that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, see, it's these sleepers that you just don't even expect. Like, when your dad was like I can't remember, he was having a conversation with me about traveling because your dad travels a lot, so it's like I was like, "Oh, that's really cool that you have this thing," like, you know what I mean? There's something else there.
There's just yeah, 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 yeah. Young spirit still there. That's
Yeah,
it's
young dude, I think that's what it is, man. Because like it's like I don't care if you do jujitsu or like I don't care if you paint or like do a podcast or like climb like our it's like just do something
Hmm.
because then you can feel that something that that person's into. And then me as a person, I can tap into that feeling
Right.
because it doesn't matter like like what one of my friends is really into the Olympics. I was gonna ask you about the Olympics, but I was like, oh, we both know. I don't think you care from like a because you're just like in the sphere of caring, but you don't really care about the Olympics, like And I
Sure.
just blatantly don't care about the unless you do. Do you care about the Olympics?
Uh, it depends what you mean by care. I guess it's like,
Are you like, oh my god, Team Canada won, yeah?
I mean, yeah, there's some that's cool, but like I'm not
No, 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 but
following.
no, no, but see,
Following.
the way you did that, you're like, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Like, I don't care. I don't like. I didn't know you were such a big fan of pole vaulting. You know what I mean? Like when people
Sure.
are like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you are like, oh my god, dude, they just won the rugby game. I'm like, when was the last time you watched rugby? They're like, never, only till now. And you're like, okay, so you don't know the
Yeah, for me
rules.
it was different because I didn't really watch the Olympics. I think I just put it on like the other day, and I was like, just remembered because I went to Paris. I was like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
Versailles. Oh,
okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
it's more like a
so there. Yeah, yeah,
memory
yeah.
trail, especially for this Olympics. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. So that makes sense. So I knew you'd be like that. That's why like we never talked about the Olympics. I was gonna bring it up, but it's like, oh, we just hate on the Olympics if we brought it up. But so one of my friends is like, they're like surprisingly into it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they were like, oh, sorry, I know you don't care. And I was like, no, I care that you care. Because it's cool to see somebody's like passion for a thing.
Hmm.
Because then you're like, oh, that's like it's the stoke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's one of the things that I learned from like snowboarders, like hanging around them. They're all just like chasing the stoke.
Hmm.
And I was like, what did you like? I didn't even understand what that meant until I was like hanging out with them because they were like, yeah, chase the stoke. I'm like, what is the stoke? And they're like stoke a flame. And I was
Right.
like, oh, we're talking the same language here. Like, gotta light my fire. I'm literally saying the same thing.
Hmm.
But it's like
Just
I
new
didn't,
words. Yeah, yeah,
new words. Like I was like,
yeah,
what's a stoke, right? And but like the word is stoke. Like you can stoke a flame. Like it's actually a
yeah, yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, it's not a real. Yeah, it's a real word. It's just how they're using it.
It's like
Yeah.
gnarly. You're like, what does that even mean? Like that's crazy. Like I use that word, but it's like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it an actual? So so yeah, so like it's cool to see people who are stoked about certain things and then like you can gravitate towards it, but it's really weird when you talk to somebody who doesn't have any stoke. Like they have no flame
Sure. Yeah.
because you're like, I don't even know how to connect with you. That's when you have those empty conversations about weather.
Hmm.
Like when you're in an elevator with other people and you're just like, oh, it's hot today. It's because you don't know anything about each other. So you're just like,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, we're just gonna fill the void. I just like sit there silently and just like grin, like whatever. This is a
Hmm.
meditation practice for me. It's awkward. But like if you start talking to them and they're like, oh, I really love baking cakes, and you're like, oh, dude, tell me about that. And
Right.
then you're like, oh yeah, man, like you the best tasting cake ever, blah, blah, blah. And then but like let's say you're all right, let's not take an elevator. Let's say you're at like a dinner party or something, and then you're just trying to connect with people and try and talk to them, and it's just like weather talk. And you're just like, bro, what am I doing here?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's it's not like I don't care because it's like, okay, that's like 1 hour of my time, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever of my life. Whereas like the rest of my life is sort of centered around like Stoke, right? And and for me, it's more like sad because you're like, I don't know what your life is like when we're away from each other.
Hmm.
But again, if you're playing the video game, it's like you're actually an NPC, so it doesn't really matter to me because like right, because like superposition and like quantum physics,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
only gonna render unless I interact with you.
Sure.
Right. So from that perspective, it's like whatever. But like if you think about it, like what is your home life like when you're not with me? Like, are you just bored all the time? Are you just chasing? Like maybe that's why people are just like mind-numbingly chasing. What did the headline say? Or I'm just gonna repeat that to you.
Hmm.
Because they're not like sentient or conscious. You know what I'm trying to say? Because
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
if you don't have the flame, if you don't have like the stoke, then you're not conscious about anything. Because it's like, do you even know what you're living for?
Sure.
Like you can have it for a baby. Like
Yeah,
friggin'
yeah, yeah.
some parents are legit parents. You're like, oh man, you love that kid, but that's your stoke. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Hmm.
But then like it's the drudgingness of it all that's just so depressing to me. And you're just like, I don't want to talk to you, bro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like when you're like, oh, the vibes are off. It's like that's what we
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah. But I feel like a lot of people don't even like I feel like that's a conscious thought. You have to be like, what because in order to realize that you have to be like, what do I like? Okay, who am I? There's so many questions to unpack, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's not just like, what do you like to do? It's like, well, first, who are you?
Hmm.
And then from there, it's like, what are your tolerances? What you know what I mean? Like, what is your threshold for risk? What is your capacity? Because all these things, like, it's a trade-off,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
There's this thing in like business called like an opportunity cost where if I buy one thing over another, the cost was not buying the other thing. So like I lost the opportunity.
Hmm.
So like a lot of people, in order to do something that they're stoked about, it's like, well, what's the cost that they have to give up? So it's like, okay, I really want to go rock climbing, right?
Yeah.
But then I have to lose time spent on like watching my kid or like preparing dinner or you know what I mean? Lack of sleep. You know, you're giving up one thing for another thing. And it's like, what is your risk tolerance to give that up?
Hmm.
But you have to know a lot about yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
True.
Yeah. So yeah. And one other thing about this, I think that now that lives are changing, we're all seeing different paradigms of how people can live their life. You know what I mean? Like have a kid, don't have a kid, buy a home, don't buy a home, you know, work a job that's like set or work a job that's more risky. You know what I'm saying? Like you can watch literally on YouTube different people living like the girl who travels itchy boots. Bro,
Oh,
what's your
yeah.
life like?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing? Like you definitely not owning a home. Like you're not building a family. You know, it's so unconventional.
True. Yeah.
But that might inspire you to be like, "Oh, I always wanted to do that."
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you'll like pursue that
Hmm.
because you have like a new example, right? Of how
Yeah.
to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that with the internet, it's giving us more like options and different ways of life. It's like you don't have to do that, bro. You can like try
Hmm.
this new thing and find your stoke in a different way.